So, hi.
Hi.
Thanks for coming back. I know it's tempting to go out and frolic in the rain. I'm like, literally, you can see through my shirt. I feel violated. If I get for buying cheap Nordstrom shirts, though. Hey. Hello. So I came in, I was going pee-pee when I think Amy was describing what interaction architecture was, information architecture was, and I missed it, because I'm still not sure what it is. So I'm going to talk to you about it. I'm Corey Pressman. Hi. I started Exprima Media after teaching. That's so it makes me proud to see that. If you ever start your own company, you know what I'm talking about. Speaking of fear, it's terrifying. So I started Exprima after teaching anthropology for 12 years, and then started a company where we were making those cute little CD-ROMs that went in the back of textbooks. Remember those? Right? It's adorable. And I remember a client, this will be relevant somehow, but I remember a client, we were drinking at some event, and it was 2004 or something, and she asked, do you think someday the web will take over and we won't have to make these disks, or what's going to happen? I was like, baby, it's going to be disks forever. Well, the pipes will never get big enough for the web. Forget it, the web's stupid. It's disk. You know what's going to happen? I told her the disks are going to get smaller. And they'll be small disks. Yeah, but I don't know where she is, but I'm here now, so it pays to be full of shit sometimes. So, speaking of which, so I started Exprima Media. We started out making CD-ROMs that didn't get smaller, but went away. When mobile happened, I was able to move the company kind of around and in front of my clients, because then they were suddenly like, oh, what do we do? What is this mobile? What can be done now that the web is what it is and mobile technology is what it is? And so we're a consultancy now, essentially. We work with content providers of all kinds, mostly in publishing, because that's how I started, but we'll talk, if you got some content, I want to talk to you about how it could potentially be made business viable, to coin a phrase, and digital at the same time. Make it sustainable, digital, and beautiful. So we talk to film companies now. We're talking to some documentary film people, because they have awesome content, right? Right? Yeah. That's hot content. You can do so. All right, settle down. It's not those kinds of documentaries, not the really short ones on the web, but the longer ones. Talk about reality stars. So we're talking to them about getting their content out of just making like a 5-hour PBS special, which is awesome and groovy, but how can we leverage simple web technologies to make that an ongoing, evergreen experience for users and for the subjects of the films themselves? It's really cool. So we talk to them. Who did I say? It's publishers, film people. We have some new fashion clients, which is really interesting. They have a lot of great content too, not just in the raiments, if you will. I can't see a word, I feel good. The raiments, but also the stories behind them. There's so much storytelling to do when you're in the fashion industry. It's really a story-centered industry. So that's the kind of stuff we're doing. And no matter where you're located or when you're seeing this or where you're seeing this, if you have some content and have some ideas floating around your head and wondering what can be done with them, give us a call. I'd love just to talk to you about it. Okay, thank you very much. See you next time. Love you all. So, what's that? That's it. Yes, who said Handex? Nice man. You owe me a drink. Can I give you the clicker?
Yes.
I'm outsourcing the clicker. Oh, much better. Now that's an Oldowan tool. And the Oldowan tool, why do I put an Oldowan tool up there? Well, I got a master's degree in anthropology. It has to be for something. I can't have quit teaching and then so I rated the slides. But also, it reminds us that this tool is and I start every slideshow with it because of Jason Grigsby, who liked the idea so much, there's like a Grigsby in my head who always, whenever I'm putting shows together, says, you gotta start with the stone tool. So I do. He's right next to my mom in my head. So, don't tell him that. So I like to start with this tool because the Oldowan tool, at least as far as we know right now, is the oldest stone tool in the archaeological record. And the significance of it isn't that these ancient hominids were making tools. And that these were, by ancient hominids, I mean like they walked on 2 feet. They were primates. They were kind of more like long arms and they were kind of short. But they walked on 2 feet. They were hominids. They had really small brains. But they were making stone tools. And not only were they, it's not the making of it that's so cool. Like birds use tools sometimes. And I'm not going to apotheosize birds. Chimps can make tools. And they're awesome. But what's awesome about these tools is that not only were they manufactured. Does that look like it was complexly manufactured, by the way? Somewhat. You could pretty much all make this drunk. So it's not that. So, if you can drink yourself down to Homo habilis level, which can be done, by the way. That's a good brand name for like tequila. Atlas. 3 shots away from your ancestry. So we're 3 shots away from making one of those. So me 5, because I've been trying a long time. So not only were they manufactured, and they're somewhat complex, but they're manuports, which meant that these suckers were carrying them around. Pretty much wherever you find a Homo habilis, you find Oldowan tools with them. And that implies something pretty intense. Not only that, but you find these creatures in environments where you didn't find creatures like that before they had the tool. So what does that imply to you? What is this tool doing for them? It's expanding, right? It's expanding the world. The tool basically, this marks in a stone tool way, in the archaeological record, the moment, if you will, in our evolution in which these creatures stopped living in the environment and started living in tools instead, living in culture. And then culture lives in the environment for them. That's pretty intense. That's different than your average chimp. I'd imagine if there was a party on Mount Olympus, they'd have to stop the party for a second and be like, what just happened? Right? Look what they did. They go, and now they got the, Fascinating. And obviously they're going to come, that party is going to stop a few times during the story. But they're partying right now. They don't care. You'll see. We'll make them care. So they have the Oldowan tool. They're living in culture. And the lesson to take from that is we're still doing that. Basically, nothing has changed since then. Everything you've got is an Oldowan tool, but just a little different. Right? Say right so I can keep going. I know some of you are like, yeah, but it's not that kind of party. You say yes when I say it. You say yes. So it's kind of like that. And in a way, this is the first mobile technology. Handheld mobile technology itself isn't new. So this whole story isn't necessarily a story of novelty, of true invention, but rather of innovation, of taking this idea and changing it. And so what does this have to do with information architecture? I don't know. Well, next slide will tell me. Amy, snoozing. Because right, say that again.
Information architecture rocks.
That's next time you whisper that to me, and I'll say it. It would have been funnier if I said it. Because information architecture rocks. You can edit. We'll do the whole edit. So it has to do with what these creatures were doing, which was having culture. Culture is basically sharing ideas, beliefs, and assumptions, and sharing them with other creatures and through generations, yeah? In other words, it's about information. It's about information. What's it about? Information about the environment, information about the mythos, information about divinity, information about sex, information about food, and then you share it with other co-specifics, and it goes down through time. So that's all it's about. So really, we've been information architects for some 3.5 million years. So again, nothing new is happening. But I'm not here to say this is so lame we shouldn't be having this conference, because nothing new is happening. Because something groovy is going on. There's an amazing moment we're in that I see as the slides go on, as an Oldowan hand axe moment that we're experiencing right now. But let's go back to what information is. So if information is what it's been all about, and we've been information architects forever, let's briefly talk about what information is and how it bears on this particular moment in its architecturing, in how we render it. So what is information? And it's kind of a ridiculous question in a way. It's kind of like using your brain to talk about the brain. It's information to talk about information. It gets woo-woo pretty quick in here, so hold on to your lunch. Gregory Bateson. Has anyone ever heard of this guy? He's thank you. More, you two owe me a drink too. Gregory Bateson, it's 3, and 3 shots is all it takes to get back to Oldowan. So I've achieved, I've leveled down. That's the name of the tequila. Level down. I love it. So Gregory Bateson is an anthropologist and philosopher and cyberneticist, and he was married to Margaret Mead. Really cool dude. Love this guy. And he, as a cyberneticist and anthropologist, was trying to define what information is. And he has a definition I want to work with. Information, he says, is, or a piece of information, is the difference that makes a difference. That, you like that? Yes. That the world itself isn't really divided. Okay. The slide will guide me. We don't read words, Bateson says, but rather, we don't read the ink even, but rather, we read the difference between the ink and the page. And it's that difference that makes a difference. If the page was the same color as the ink, what happens to the information? it's gone. There is no information. But as soon as you change the background, then there's a background and a foreground and there's information. When there's a background and a foreground, there's information. When there's a, and then you have a, then you got information. So if you have a difference, that makes a difference. If there's that disequilibrium there, he was saying when everything's in equilibrium in a system, the system kind of disappears. It's the squeaky wheel that gets oiled. What wheel? Squeaky one, because that's the one giving you information, right? Right? Otherwise it's disappeared. So in a way, information is about difference, and it's about delineation. It's about creating divisions. And I said creating because it's a creative act to create information, to create the difference between the page and the ink. That information is created. And what's it created by? In this case, and this is important to us as designers, although everyone that come up here said I'm not a designer so far. No one's copying to being a designer. I'm not either. No way. I'm actually not. I'm a wandering sage. We are all designers in that. What's one of the ways you make information? Do you see ink? Do you see the word it right there? Yes. Gotcha. Then you're all designers. Your biologicalness created that information for you. So there's a whole biological level to carving up the world. Yeah? To create information. We can leverage that as intentional designers to create information for each other, but the information automatically happens through your biological epistemology. Right? Epistemology is ways of knowing, of how we know the world. And you have a biological epistemology, different from that of honeybees and giraffes, and they know a different world, according to Bateson. And this delineation, the next slide please, this delineation is necessary because without it, as William Blake says, we'll see the world for how it really is. Infinite. He says if we cleanse the doors of perception, we'll see the world for how it really is, infinite. What are the doors of perception? Your eyes, your ears, society, whatever it is. If we cleanse those, then we see reality, which is useless to us. There's no information there. We're playing an information game. So if we cleanse the doors of perception, we lose information. So does this seem like maybe it has a little more to do with information architecture? Tell me if I'm getting closer. By the end, hopefully it'll be a solid yes and I can stop talking. This slide's freaking me out. Can you go to the next one? So, actually go back, because I want to own it. Hey, William Blake's cool. No, stay over there for a second. So the point is that, what is the point? Damn it. That information is a creative act. That information is a design decision. Every time. You happen to absorb all kinds of information because of your biology, but then as designers, in this new moment of information delivery, have an opportunity to design information anew. That's what's so intense. So the next slide shows us the map. And there's another saying that Bateson used to say, but he was quoting someone else named Alfred Korzybski, who said that the map is not the territory. And this is a pretty heavy statement. In other words, when you make a map, what do you put on the map? Yeah, you put stuff on there, stuff that you're grooving on, whatever it happens to be. It could be elevations, it could be miles, it could be, I don't know, what else do you put on maps? Borders, right, elevation, right, all of those things that go onto a map. But if you were to make the map one-to-one with reality, if I was to take this map and put in every blade of grass, try saying that in public, fast, blade of grass, and every rock and every piece of dirt, then what do you wind up with? Reality, which is useless, right? It's infinite. It's useless as information. If you had a map that was the territory, it's not a map, it's not information, it's not useful. So for as awesome as reality is, it's not informative. There's a cool, this here's a computer, a camera, a phone, and a book. Well, it's not a book, it's a joke. There's a cool little tiny, can I read you just a little thing? Can I read you just a little thing? This is from Borges, and it's called On Exactitude in Science. And Borges wrote these beautiful little short stories that are like one paragraph long. They're really intriguing. And this one's called On Exactitude in Science. In that empire, it just starts with an ellipsis. Isn't that cool? That's ballsy to start with an ellipsis. In that empire, the art of cartography attained such perfection that the map of a single province occupied the entirety of a city, and the map of the empire the entirety of a province. In time, those unconscionable maps no longer satisfied, and the Cartographers' Guild struck a map of the empire whose size was that of the empire, and which coincided point by point with it. The following generations, who were not so fond of the study of cartography as their forebears had been, saw that the vast map was useless, and not without some pitilessness was it that they delivered it up to the inclemencies of sun and winters in the deserts of the West. Still today, there are tattered ruins of that map, inhabited by animals and beggars. In all the land, there is no other relic of the disciplines of geography. It's intense. A good name for a band would be like Animals and Beggars. Right? It's a Borges reference, man. Let's dish this party. Go. So, maps themselves are a way of making information, and that's what we've been doing all along, is map making. That's what the Oldowan tool was in a way. And that's the opportunity we have now. We have new tools for making maps. Because of digital, frankly, because of binary, we have new tools of making maps, and this is our moment to carve up reality in new and useful ways. That's what it's all about. That's the information architecture available to us. Can I see the next slide so I know where I'm going? Oh. Foucault. What is this? Is a disturbing picture right now. I want this for Christmas. I want what's that called when you spray paint through a thing? A stencil, right? A Foucault stencil. So what is knowledge for? Why do we do this? Why do we make knowledge to begin with? And you tell me, because we're all humans and you do it too. Pick up women. Pick up women, exactly. We have knowledge for it. It's very true. It's not just picking them up, but it's procreation, to be more scientific about it. Right? Corey. So yes, to pick them up and then put them down gently. Ensue. So yes, it's for procreation and for fun and for just seeming cool at parties. It's for getting a better job, right? Right? It's for all these things. This also just happens inevitably, and so you can move from point A to point B without running into things, because your eyes have carved up reality in a useful way. It's also just to make the most of our neocortical potential of just doing it just to do it. And as Foucault said, knowledge isn't for understanding, it's for cutting. Knowledge is for cutting. He's such a cool dude. And he means, I'm going to say he means, that it's for cutting up the world into useful chunks. And again, if knowledge is for cutting, then we've been given new tools with which to cut. And this is the moment that we occupy. This is why I'm so excited, because something just happened. I mean, the hyperlink, the word hyperlink, was first published in 1963. So that's exciting, because it seems like it's a long time ago we've had hyperlinks. That was before the Beatles came to America, so that's pretty crazy shit right there. But at the same time, right, that's kind of cool. That's, right? Yes. Right, and that's Ted Nelson, and I think we all owe Ted. Everyone say thank you, Ted. I love Ted, he nailed it. But at the same time, how long ago was that really? I just sold you an Oldowan tool from 3.5 million years ago. So it's not that old, right? Especially if you're born in the 60s, doesn't seem like it was that long ago at all. So, next slide, please. Given what's going on, we're on to something really cool. And what we're on to is an extension of, or stands on the shoulders of, prior information architecture wins for our genus. The first one was things like the Oldowan tool, we had cave art and all these things, but here was an information architecture win like no other. Does anyone know what that is? I showed it to Amy the other day and she thought it was martini glasses. So the martini. That's cuneiform, a large picture of cuneiform, which was one of the earliest alphabets used to actually tell stories. And so, in other words, what am I talking about? I'm talking about writing, right? It's all about writing. Writing was an information architecture win. Before writing, and writing started about 10,000 years ago or so. So the species started about 200,000 years ago. So from 200,000 years ago to 10,000 years ago, how long is that? Long time ago. For about 190,000 years, all the information everywhere for everyone was only transmitted through talking, whispering, yelling, shouting, or body language. That's it. That's pretty intense. They call that the orality era. Eddie will like that. the orality era, in which all information was passed down orally. You couldn't really learn anything from anyone unless you were in shouting distance. And orality has a really specific take on media and on information. Information transfer is very personal. Eye contact can be involved. It's very intimate. It's very sociologically situated in time and space, right? You're hearing it right then. It's also very memory-ish. There's a better word. Mnemonic. That's an MN, I think. It's very mnemonic, so it relies on memory, it relies on being in the same time and place as the information itself. And however, stories existed for centuries during that time. But how did they exist? Did they exist by writing them down? Say no yet. All right, they existed through people remembering them and retelling them. It was a culture of retelling, rather. And when you retell a story, is it the same exact story you heard? Rarely, but rather it's a story that morphs a little bit. The theme is the same, but the plots change a little bit. There are sticking points, the rosy-fingered dawn, the returning phrases. But around those, things change. In an oral culture like that, in other words, for all of humanity, for 190,000 years or so, there was no such thing as authorship, per se, but rather tellers, not authors. It's a whole different thing. And when writing comes around, I think people were skeptical at first. And writing, as you probably know, didn't start because people wanted to write the stuff down. It wasn't like one day they were like, shit, we've been doing it wrong. Write it down, I want to remember all this stuff. But it kind of happened accidentally, I think. I mean, I wasn't there, clearly. Right? I wasn't there. If I was doing push-ups. But rather, writing started for record keeping, for receipts and how many ox do you have, and how much patchouli do you have, because I figured back in the day everyone was groovy. So they're keeping track of things, but then they started to realize, hey, these marks we made up, these cuneiform marks in clay tablets that we made up for keeping track of patchouli, can also be used to, like, let's write down Gilgamesh. Write down Gilgamesh? Yeah. And then once you write down Gilgamesh, what happens? The moment someone put the period at the end of the sentence, to be anachronistic, I think that's another point where the gods of Olympus were like, what the hell is that? They just take receipts and hack receipts to write down stories, right? It must have been, well, let's back to the party, because they're drinking lots of level down. But that's intense stuff. And it starts a whole new thing, and it snowballs, really. Writing kind of takes off. And writing was resisted at first because of, well, for the reasons you'd think. Hold on, I have a piece of information here. This is also a computer, a camera, and a phone. And there's a quote on here from somebody talking about writing. If men learn this, which is writing, it will implant forgetfulness in their souls. They will cease to exercise memory because they rely on that which is written, calling things to remembrance no longer from within themselves, but by means of external marks. What you have discovered is a recipe not for memory, but for reminder, and it is not true wisdom that you offer your disciples, but only its semblance. For by telling them of many things without teaching them, you will make them seem to know much, while for the most part they know nothing. And as men filled not with wisdom, but with conceit of wisdom, they will be a burden to their fellows. It's heavy. It's all right. So whoever said that was not only complaining about writing, but also predicting schmucks at parties. Right there, right? You're going to think you know all this stuff and you're going to go on, but you don't. So the complaint was, and who was that, by the way? Does anyone recognize that quote? That was Plato putting it in the mouth of Socrates. Huh? No. You two owe me a drink too. That's 5. Fascinating. So the complaint to writing, and that was ancient Greek times, but the complaint about writing was that it takes data, it takes information, and puts it on a cloud. That cloud-based data will kind of remove it from us by one step, thereby disallowing wisdom. I don't know what there is to learn about that, it's just fascinating. There's sort of this nothing's new going on here. In that, right? In that, right? In that, people are complaining about the sort of disassociation that making your information cloudy does. But books were fantastic. We can't complain about them. What have they done? They transformed the world forever, right? They're the basis of civilization. They're all the reason we're here. They've expanded, made knowledge an amazing thing. And they ended the orality period for most of the world and started what some researchers call print culture, or print period, if you will. And the print culture is a lot different. And print culture happens after the printing press, and writing kind of inevitably goes to printing. That's a whole other awesome discussion. But once you get printing and print culture and books everywhere, then no one has to remember anything anymore. Information becomes a ghost. Libraries are huge haunted houses where you can go in and read the sayings of people long dead. Information doesn't have to be situated. You don't have to be anywhere near the time or place to learn something from somebody. So it creates a whole new groove, a whole new basis for civilization. All pretty intense and amazing. However, now we're getting up to the moment that we're at. That was it, till about 1963, June 15th. Somewhere in there, this happened. Well, actually, this happened. This happened. Yeah, thank you. Let's get closer to 80s. What is that? Binary. Does anyone know what that says in binary? Jeannie Turner does not know. It says, oh, I can't tell you, it's gross. No, it says Exprima Media. Binary. So binary happens a little earlier than 1963, but with binary, it's like the book again. What's going on with binary? With binary, what happens with information? Do we need the ink in the page anymore? No, this is so intense. Information is turned into vapor. Machine-readable vapor. Ones and zeros in a pattern readable by machines that can then be situated for our epistemology however we want. But we've once removed it and taken information, I'm going to get freaky on you now, and made it robot epistemology. All the knowledge of the world is in ones and zeros and readable by robots only. If you can read this straight out, you're awesome. But you need to just stay living with your mom. You'll be safe. You'll be fine. Girlfriends are overrated. But for most of us, we can't. But rather, we rely on the robots or we design the robot. I don't want to get too freaky about the robot. It's fun. And Cylons are hot, as it turns out. But rather, information is now cloudy. It's in the robot's mind, and we train the robots to make it available to our epistemology, right? To our ways of knowing. Well, what is e-ink? Aside from a ridiculously skeuomorphic thing to say. E-ink? What is e-ink? Yeah, it's a display technology that changes colors, right? That takes a background and makes a foreground. Right? So the gods in Olympus are like, they have binary, and they made e-ink. Great. So they're still doing like this whole paper thing. They have binary, and they do page curl. Great. Good move, guys. See you later. So we have an opportunity now that information has been desituated and rendered into robot epistemology, that we could control its rendering. We could do anything we want. And this just started. So don't feel bad. When I talk this way to my clients, I see them start to deflate. Like, we're losers. We haven't done anything. You are losers. But you're paying my day rate now. You're safe. You'll be fine. I don't know what the next slide is. Let's look. So, right. This still has. What does this mean? Why did I put this up here? It's a mystery to me. Help me. Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Yeah, this is not a pipe. This is not a book. Is it? This is an iPad, and it's whatever we want it to be. There's no there. And so that's the opportunity here. As designers, we can redesign the entire situation. Books gave information through having the difference between the ink and the page, and through having a cloud of what's called paratext around the book, by having covers, by having a certain market, by having introductions, by having footnotes and pictures, and this whole interaction design protocol that evolved around the book. This is not a book, but this is not a book, right? Let me make sure we're on this right? But if we call it that, we call them e-books. Every time I hear e-book, I know a kid somewhere has died. Don't say e-book. It's just not right. It's not a book, and e-cigarette makes sense, but not e-book. It's gross. Rather, it's a whole new way of displaying what's been roboticized information. Are you with me on my frustration here?
Yes.
So what we can do, the moment we're in, is a moment of true experimentation. Realizing that this isn't a book. And there's a lot of business logic to it, and I realize that now. 2 years ago, I'd just give this talk and just be pissed. Why hasn't it happened yet? But there's a lot of design decisions that have to be made. And design decisions have to be made by people who are paying designers. And people who are paying designers are part of a capitalist system in which they have to make money to stay in existence. It's terrible. So unless North Korea turns to HTML, we're screwed. But we're not, because what I'm encouraging now is that we are in this moment. Let me appeal to you as designers before as business owners. That as designers, we have an opportunity to start experimenting using the simplest of tools, using the simplest of Oldowan-like experiences. What do you need to make an amazing web app? Tell me, coders in the room? Notepad. And then what code do you use? HTML. What else? JavaScript. What else? Done. Done. Junior high classes in these things give you all the information you need to do it. No offense. You also need years of becoming a lizard like me even. That's not true. Coders are great people. But all you need, it's just personal experience. All you need are these simplest of tools to renovate how information is transferred. Sure, ebooks maybe need to be there to get us through the idea of, whoa, it's not a book anymore, but it looks like one because that's a page curl. Okay, got it, thanks. All right, Grandpa, fantastic. I hope you're happy. But this is awesome talking to. This is inside. We're inside the Golden Temple right now. And it's us who can make this change. So what should you be doing? Ask me, what should we be doing? I don't know. I'm not a designer. I don't know, I'm just a guy thinking about the problem. But yeah, what you said, dude, is it. Say it again. Experimenting, coming up with ways of telling stories, of ways of making interfaces that take full advantage of the moment that we're in. And not only do we have coders who are awesome and good to have around in small number, don't let more than 5 get together at once. But you lock the door, get the axe, turn off the lights, run. Or get underwater, right? They say when bees are attacking underwater. But we also need, the most important people, I would say, are interaction designers. That user-centered interaction design is what's going to save the world here, and with the help of some coders. But the interaction designers are the ones that have a language for generating a new protocol for interfacing with the information that's been turned into ones and zeros. And what information am I talking about? All the information. All of it. And so we can portray it in ways that that make a difference, that have the difference that make a difference. Does it have to be ink and letters and pages? No, it can be graphics and video and storytelling and 3D animation and mix it all together. Animation is what you say it was this morning? Okay, and you said animation is not animation anymore? I love that. Animation is not animation anymore. Now it's another thing in the toolbox for recreating the new storytelling. What have interaction designers given us? They've given us the idea of affordance, the idea of user testing, the idea of zones. What else? What else do they give us?
Research.
That's it. Research, right? User research, workflow processes. All of these tools are in place, and I can't wait until they're used for something other than, I don't know, what's the web used for now? Pornography, selling shoes, showing off, right? Cat pictures, that's great. And it's all fine because sometimes it's all mixed into one. I like that, I'll buy it. Yeah. Look what I bought. Right? All happens at once because Facebook announces you bought this sex kitten thing. .com, gotta go. See you later. So they've given us all these tools, and don't feel bad because it's only the first 4 seconds of this, but this is the moment we're in. Not only that, but there's this ancient tradition of the humanities and storytelling and pacing. And we need to take that idea of the humanities and pacing and storytelling and theme and repetition, and we need to groove on what science gives us in the way of experimentation. Experimentation is a formal thing. There have been experimenters around for hundreds of years. Real experimentation, using humanities and design and coders to implement these things and see what we can come up with. And there are some worthy experiments out there. It is happening to some extent. There's, I don't know, there's cool things. Can anyone think of a cool site that they think is experimental and has to do with content delivery? Facebook. Very interesting experiment in sociality and capitalism. It's true. It is. No, that's fine. It's awesome because Facebook will be a piece of the solution I'm talking about. It will be. Maybe not this Facebook. My. Cowbird. Has anyone ever heard of Cowbird? I heart Cowbird. Raise your hand if you heart Cowbird. I love you. You kind of heart it? What's that? Right, but you like reading. Interesting. Cowbird is a site that allows you to basically post an image and then like a little snippet of audio or a little paragraph or two related to the image, and through so doing you make a little mini documentary. And what's cool about Cowbird is it uses nothing. It uses errors, nothing. It's HTML, CSS, JavaScript to make this web app where you can groove on little stories written by other people, little mini documentaries that can inspire you and move you, storytelling, pacing, emotion, it's all there. And at the same time, it allows anyone to be an author, which is another moment we're in. We're in this thing that this period, I talked about the period of orality, did I not? Okay, hold on, I got a password on this. Did I explain to you what this was?
It's an ebook.
It's not an ebook. Them are fighting words. I'm from Brooklyn, I don't know if I told you that. We're in, right, so there was the orality period, it says right there in my notes, and after that was the written and print period. And what we're in now is what people like Marshall McLuhan and this dude Walter Ong, they call it secondary orality. You like that? Said you like that? Right? In which it's an orality period again, in which there's storytelling, in which there's face-to-face communication. There's not a lot of face-to-face communication via digital means. There's this sort of post-print culture emerging, in which it's oral, it's visual. Marshall McLuhan talked about there being a haptic harmony someday, when we would have media that wouldn't just be words. He didn't like books per se. He thought them to be hypnotic, that it was just staring at something. He thought that was a little weird. Because back in the day, we didn't just stare at things. People just staring at trees were taking away from the tribe. But now we stare at trees and you're like, hey, what are you doing after the party? So now, in the secondary orality period, it's a little more dynamic, a little more relational, omni-authorship. These were the things they were grooving on. And what's wild about Ong and McLuhan is that they were grooving on this idea of there being non-linear storytelling, multi-authorship when the radio came out. They never even saw HTML. And McLuhan said, for example, the new electronic interdependence recreates the world in the image of a global village. The whole global village meme. And he wasn't talking about the internet. He didn't know from Facebook. He was just talking about the telephone and radio. That's when they said secondary orality began. So imagine how disappointed he'd be if he saw Page Girl. Be mad. Although they did take it out, must remain. Here's a quote from someone when the radio first came out, and a media commentator was writing in a paper. How fine is the texture of the web that the radio is spinning. It is achieving the task of making us feel together, think together, live together. Radio. So this all started a while ago, the whole secondary orality revolution. But we are the true first guard. We are the real fighters in this. Here's something else McLuhan said. I'll wrap up with something like this. Or not, I could just keep going. The next medium, I love that right there. Don't your ears perk up when you hear that? Is Facebook, he said. No. The next medium, but dig this. This is what this guy says. Like, you know, it's 50s, he's floating around. The next medium will include television as its content, not as its environment, and will transform television into an art form. A computer as a research and communication instrument could enhance retrieval, obsolesce mass library organization, retrieve the individual's encyclopedic function, and flip into a private line of speedily tailored data of a saleable kind. No, we're not. So they saw this coming. It's not like we should be surprised. They all saw this coming, but we're surprised. And there's something scary about the last thing I read, data of a saleable kind. That's what's happening to data. That's what information has become. Information is supposed to be as dispassionate and pared down as possible so that they're saleable bits. And that, frankly, is a total pain in the ass. Because I see this as a humanities movement, not an economic movement only. But when we take information and do that with it, that means the economists are winning. So we need to reclaim that. Can we do that? Can we redesign the future as interaction designers and coders, a few, just less than 5? Yes? Is this a task you're up to? This is the information architecture age right now because we can actually architect information. I'll finish with a poem. I will. Shut up. Hold on. I'm going to do the play. Oh, that's a good one. I have two. Which one do you want to hear? Both? Yeah. Amy, can I do both? Can I do a scene from Greece? Danny? Sir? Rockin' and rolling. Remember that? The greatest scenes in all of cinema. It's a pretty bold statement. This one's Pablo Neruda, and it's Ode to the Book. I won't read you the whole thing because it's a long ode, but he says some cool things in here about books and media and experience. Let me find a good place to start because it's so long. Oh, this is good stuff. Oh yeah, enjoy this poem a lot. Oh, that's the best part. Here it is. Okay. Thank you. Good night. I wanted to say that. Book. Here it is. Book, let me go. I won't go clothed in volumes. I don't come out of collected works. My poems have not eaten poems. They devour exciting happenings, feed on rough weather, and dig their food out of earth and men. I'm on my way with dust in my shoes, free of mythology. Send books back to their shelves. I'm going down to the streets. I learned about life from life itself. Love I learned in a single kiss and could teach no one anything except that I have lived with something in common among men when fighting with them, when saying all their say in my song. So what Neruda is telling us is that he's one of the quintessential authors, I think, of all time, but he's not clothed in books. What is the essence of Neruda, according to Neruda? His life itself, the experience, right? And that the books are just a way to inform us about it, to say the lives of other men with saying all their say in my song. So we can create a song to say the say, and that's a creative act. And he did it with books and poetry because that's what was around. But I bet if Neruda was around 10 years from now, he'd be a wicked coder. Or an HTML, interaction designer. Oh, the last poem is just sort of a call to action. Can you handle it? Can you dig it? So this is by C.P. Cavafy, and it's a poem called Ithaca. It's another long one, but it's awesome, and it's based on the Odyssey and that journey, and it's the journey that I see us on. He says some really amazing things here. The poem starts out, as you set out for Ithaca, which is what we're doing, right? We're looking for the holy grail of the new Oldowan, creating a new way of storytelling, and it's literally this generation that's going to do it. So as we set out for Ithaca, hope the voyage is a long one, full of adventure, full of discovery. So I'm not saying let's hurry up and get this done, let's come up with the new post-page curl media. Let's take some time, let's mess around, yeah? Let's be creative about it. Let this be remembered as an era, a sort of a renaissance in its own right, with crazy flying machines and all these experiments, and we'll see what happens. He closes the poem, keep Ithaca always in your mind. Arriving there is what you are destined for, but do not hurry the journey at all. Better if it lasts for years, so you are old by the time you reach the island, wealthy with all you have gained on the way, not expecting Ithaca to make you rich. Ithaca gave you the marvelous journey. Without her, you would not have set out. She has nothing left to give you now. Go now. Thank you.